curious, slightly hushed tone. In November 1910, a group of men boarded a private railway car at a Washington, D.C. station. They traveled using first names only, telling anyone who asked that they were headed to Georgia for a quiet duck hunting trip. The duck hunting story provided a necessary cover. These 6 passengers included the most powerful private bankers in the world, representing dynasties like Morgan, Rockefeller, and Rothschild, traveling under deep cover to an exclusive retreat on Jekyll Island. For 9 days, they operated in total secrecy. Their actual objective was to draft a comprehensive central banking act for the United States, designing a financial system they would ultimately oversee. 3 years later, on December 23, 1913, while most of Congress was home for the holidays, that exact plan was rushed through the legislature and signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson. The Federal Reserve was born. No public vote or democratic process shaped the institution that controls America's money. A private banking cartel engineered it to serve their own financial architecture. Today, most people assume the Federal Reserve operates as a standard government agency, like the Department of Defense or Agriculture. In practice, the Federal Reserve functions as an independent, self-sustaining entity. Its 12 regional banks are owned not by the taxpayers, but by private commercial banks. Its decisions require no approval from the President or Congress. Furthermore, the Board of Governors serve 14-year terms, long-duration appointments designed to outlast the politicians who initially selected them. Because the Fed does not receive its funding from Congress, and its policies bypass executive branches, the nation's most powerful economic engine operates in a space insulated from direct voter accountability. When the United States spends more money than it collects in taxes, it funds the deficit by issuing treasury bonds. These function as massive government IOUs, promising future repayment plus interest. The Federal Reserve steps in to buy these bonds. It doesn't use collected tax revenue or stored savings. It simply types numbers into a computer, creating new digital currency out of thin air to make the purchase. In finance, this is known as monetizing the debt. When that newly created money enters a commercial bank, it multiplies. Under fractional reserve banking, banks hold only a tiny fraction of those deposits in reserve. They lend out the rest, multiplying the initial deposit up to 10 times over through new lines of credit. Constantly injecting this new currency into a system and mathematically multiplying it permanently inflates the total money supply. The dollars in your pocket represent issued debt, not stored wealth. Every time the Fed creates new money to fund government deficits, it extracts purchasing power from the currency you already hold. The American monetary system originally relied on a physical governor to prevent infinite money creation. The dollar was tied directly to a fixed amount of gold. That limit was systematically dismantled. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order confiscating civilian gold and making it illegal for Americans to exchange their dollars for it. 11 years later, the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world reserve currency. Foreign governments could still exchange their dollars for American gold, preserving a global illusion of backing even while U.S. citizens could not. The final physical limit fell on August 15, 1971. As foreign nations rapidly depleted the U.S. gold reserves, President Richard Nixon made a closed-door decision to unilaterally suspend the dollar's convertibility into gold entirely. Severing that final tie left the U.S. dollar as a pure fiat currency. Backed by nothing but a government promise, the physical limits on the expansion of debt vanished. This chart illustrates the trajectory of the U.S. national debt since 1971. When the gold standard was removed, the debt sat at roughly $398 billion. Stripped of its physical limit, it follows an exponential curve, passing $35 trillion today. That acceleration relies on a modern monetary mechanism called quantitative easing, or QE. It functions as debt monetization on a turbocharged scale, deployed after the 2008 and 2020 financial crises. The Fed injected trillions of new dollars into the financial system. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet rises in massive vertical steps, matching each round of QE. The real-world consequence of this digital printing hits the working class directly. While financial asset prices soar for those who already hold them, the actual purchasing power of your wages burns away. The inflation you feel at the grocery store stems from a strict mathematical equation. A system designed to print infinite money ensures the constant erosion of your purchasing power. The Founding Fathers anticipated this scenario. Thomas Jefferson was among the most vocal opponents to the creation of any central bank in the United States. He warned that handing the power of currency creation over to a private banking institution posed a greater threat to the liberties and wealth of the public than a standing army. We trade our time, our labor, and our lives for this currency every single day. Yet very few people ever pause to ask where it actually comes from or who controls its supply. The purchasing power of the American dollar today is the direct result of a system engineered in secret, a mechanism for infinite money creation that began on Jekyll Island.